Good morning. Get that to a little better height because we had our beautiful big Chelsea here. I'm so happy to be with you here this morning. My name is Reverend Dr. Alice Reid, and I'm the spiritual director here at Centers for Spiritual Living, Capistrano Valley, as we continue to be guests of the beautiful San Clemente Baha'i community. And I am back from a brief visit with family and friends on the East Coast. It was lovely to spend time with my daughter, my grands, and many of the people I've known for many years who were absolutely part of who I became and who I am continuing to become. And it's always wonderful to go home, to feel the grounding of being surrounded by people who knew you when. And to continue to see my family. And so I'm grateful for the time that I had there, although it was very brief and the weather was wonderful. And so I was grateful for that. So as you know, I'm sure Reverend Arpad spoke last week, and I spoke the week before, that in January, this is our opportunity to dive deep into that place within us and begin to recall the core principles of this particular philosophy. And what's really cool, as you know, is we did this beautiful lighting of the flames of faith. This philosophy is a synthesis of spiritual truth that can be found in many spiritual paths and teachings. And so I'm really grateful for that. It gives us this broad road to travel along as we continue to incorporate these principles in our lives. And so we are in week 3 of a 4-week series looking at those core principles. And when I look at the first 4 chapters and how they're titled, I like to imagine that Ernest Holmes, when he wrote the Science of Mind textbook, was feeling a little playful, right? Feeling just a little playful. We have the thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. And so he's referring to the divine in this, how could we say, multi-genderless way. It's not God the Father, Mother. It's really referring to the divine in a beautiful way that's more approachable, I think, as we begin to look at and expand our idea of what spiritual principles can look like in our lives. And as he writes these first 4 chapters, he's really talking about the creative process. Now, especially the first 3. He's talking about this, as you know, when we talk about, and I'm always harping on the creative process. And the reason I talk about it so much is because it is really how we engage the divine when it wants to express life through us. And so the thing itself correlates to that idea of the seed, right? If I've talked about the creative process and the little metaphor of the seed, the soil, and the plant, well, the thing itself is the seed. Actually, it's even more than the seed. It's what's inside the seed, the energy that creates the seed, or that impetus for life in its expression. And when we get to that second chapter of the way it works, well, that's the soil or the law. That's the energy that holds the idea, the grand, beautiful, pure potentiality, and gives it the energy so that it can become manifest. It can demonstrate in the world in the form or experience or situations. And so, of course, we get to this this third chapter, and what it does is it creates life through us, as us, and by us. So we are the plant. And this chapter is all about how that idea of pure potentiality of all possibility can become our experience, can become the things that we see and feel, the things we actually touch, the tangible relationship that we have with life. Cause, law, and effect. And when we're working with cause, law, and effect, when we're working with cause and effect, which moves through law to become effect, when we're working with that, we understand that spirit, that divine pure potentiality, needs us to know what to create. And here's the tricky part. You might want to create one thing, you might want to create another thing, and you might want to create another thing, and none of those things seem to go together. But Spirit doesn't say, I like her idea better. Spirit simply says yes. It says yes to our individual impulses of thought and feelings and beliefs, and it moves through that to express itself into life. And that's how we get to this idea of what it does. It doesn't judge. It doesn't have an opinion. Ernest Holmes, in these first 4 chapters, states it this way, that the law is no respecter of persons. It just says yes. It just creates. It just offers itself to us to create with it. And there's a little bit of a tricky part to this and idea of creation, and that is that not only is, as I've already kind of pointed out, not only is the law responding to your thoughts, your beliefs, your feelings, but it's responding to the collective thoughts and ideas and feelings. And I like to think of that as the noosphere. I love that word, the noosphere. That is actually defined as the sphere of human thought. And so when we're thinking about this idea of the creative process and these first 4 chapters and how life comes to be by means of each one of us, we have to remember that it's coming to be by all of us. I like to say that everything we experience, we either create, or we promote, or we allow, or we step in it. And that's because of the noosphere. The noosphere, that is this idea of spirit creating by means of our thoughts and our beliefs and the things that we carry within us. Well, it's a big idea. It's a big process. And so sometimes we step in things. And so as we look at this idea, I want to bring in this beautiful story from the book, Braiding Sweetgrass, to sort of bring it home to us, to make it a little more tangible. Robin Wall Kimmerer, who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass, writes about what she calls the teachings of the grass. And she shares how there's a native custom with cutting sweetgrass so that they can use it for ritual. And they go out and they get sweetgrass from the wild. And there's one school of thought and one method where people pinch each blade of grass individually. And there's another school of thought where people go in and they pull clumps up from the roots. And the people who are pinchers think the people who are grabbers are doing it wrong. And the people who are grabbers think the people who are pinchers, well, they're doing it wrong. They do share one thing, one basic idea that's in common to them, and I want to share that with you. It's tribal wisdom that simply says, if we use a plant respectfully, it will stay with us and flourish. If we ignore it, it will go away. And if you don't give it respect, it will leave us. And so there is a practice, whether you are a pincher or a grabber of sweetgrass, there is a process of making sure that you never harvest more than half the plants, that you always leave half the plants so that they can regenerate, and that's part of respecting nature. So Robin had a grad student, because she's a botanist and a professor, as well as an indigenous tribal expert, and actually part of that culture. And so she had a grad student who wanted to do a study whether the pinchers or the grabbers were right. And so they came across a field of sweetgrass, and they created 3 separate areas: one area for the pinchers, one area for the grabbers, and one area that was the control area for the study. And they witnessed and observed this process for 2 years. And at the end of the 2 years, they quantified the results. Before they started, this beautiful grad student went in and she counted each blade of grass in each section. And so after 2 years, I just want to read to you what she wrote. The findings were interesting. Robin writes, her statistical analysis were all sound and thorough, but she hardly needed graphs to tell the story. From across the field, you could see the difference. Some plots gleamed shiny golden green, and some were dull and brown. The surprise was that the failing plots were not the harvested ones, as predicted, but the unharvested control plots. The sweetgrass that had not been picked or disturbed in any way was choked with dead stems, while the harvested plots were thriving. Whether the sweetgrass had been pinched or pulled, the end result was nearly the same. It didn't seem to matter how the sweetgrass was harvested, only that it was. Lori's findings might have been surprising to academics, but they were consistent with the theory voiced by the ancestors. If we use a plant respectfully, it will stay and flourish. If we ignore it, it will go away. Now, many of you might be like me, carrying some heaviness, perhaps a little grief about, or shock about some of the things that you're seeing as you look around and witness humanity in our own country, in other countries, in Iran, in Venezuela, in Minneapolis. And that is natural when we witness violence that is perpetrated against humanity. It is natural for us to feel something about that. And I'm not going to speak about the particulars, because as a society, we don't all agree. Some of us are pinchers. Some of us are grabbers. We don't all agree on what's happening or why it's happening. But I want to speak to something a little deeper that this philosophy of ours invites us to consider: how violence itself arises in the collective field and what the creative process does with what humanity repeatedly impresses upon it. As I've already shared, Science of Mind teaches that the law is neutral, creative, and exact. Holmes writes often that it is no respecter of persons. It doesn't judge, it doesn't intervene. It merely reflects what it is that we believe, what it is that we believe as individuals, what it is that we believe as a collective. And so when we look out into the world and we see things that are happening, it is a reflection of mass consciousness. It is a reflection of what is going on in consciousness. And this means that the questions that we need to ask are not who is to blame and whose fault it is, but what are we tending to? What are we cultivating? What is it that we want to see in this world of ours that we are participating in? The Sweetgrass story teaches us something essential. Harm doesn't just come from misuse. It also comes from neglect, from disconnection, from forgetting who we are, forgetting our relationship with life. When we stop tending to one another, when we stop seeing the humanity in those we disagree with or fear or judge, something begins to wither, to contract. And the law simply reflects that breakdown back to us in the world we see around us. And friends, this is one of those moments. Unfortunately, there have been many over the last 5 to 10 years. But this is one of those moments when it is important for us to pay attention to what we are tending to. What are we cultivating? What is it that we want to see out in the world? And I'm reminded of an oldie but goodie story about Mahatma Gandhi. He was meeting with many of his constituents, and a mother came to him with her son, and she was distraught, and she said, "I need your help, please help me. He will not stop eating sugar. I don't know what to do." And Gandhi looked at the boy, and he looked at the mother, and he simply said, "Come back in 2 weeks." 2 weeks transpired, and the mother came back, and she said, "Oh, please help me. He's continuing. He's just all he eats is sugar. I can't stop him. Please help me." So Gandhi looked at the child, leaned down, and said, "Stop eating sugar." The mother was like, "What? Why did I have to wait 2 weeks for that?" And Gandhi simply replied, "I had to stop eating sugar first. I had to stop eating sugar first." Is there something in the world that is really disturbing you? We don't actually have the answers to how to fix everything in the world, but we do have agency within ourselves to begin to influence those around you. What I like to call your circles of influence, your spheres of influence. And we do that first by cultivating and tending the garden of our own thoughts and our own beliefs. And then to move from that place of clarity where we are grounded in spirit. Personally, I want more compassion in the world. I'll be sharing that with the ecclesiastical team. I want to see more compassion in the world. Well, guess what? I have to be more compassionate. Thank God the drivers don't hear me on the 5. I am the least compassionate person you want to be with when I'm driving. It's a really simplistic example, and there are bigger ways where I can be more compassionate. But if I want to live in a world where we see each other's humanity and we don't just dehumanize each other because you're doing this and I want that, we're not tending our gardens. So I want to give us an opportunity this morning just to do a really simple process that can help us to ground ourselves. And it's the simple process of blessing with a twist. And so I want to invite you to put one hand on your heart and maybe another hand on your belly so that you can feel your body temple. And notice how you're feeling right now. And then lower your gaze or close your eyes. And I want you to invite a blessing, a silent blessing for someone you find difficult, someone you may not agree with. You don't have to understand them. You don't have to agree with them. We're simply acknowledging their humanity. And if you're brave, I offer this love prayer, and that is to say silently to this person you find difficult, with each inhalation, I accept you. And with each exhalation, I bless you. And to do that for a few moments with the natural rhythm of your breath. I accept you. I bless you. Now finish that cycle and silently bless yourself for showing up with an open heart in a complicated world. And then come back to this space and notice how you may feel a little different than when you started. Sweetgrass flourishes when it's tended, engaged, and respected. So do communities. So do societies. So do each one of us. This week, our work is not to fix the world, but to tend the field we are part of, knowing the law will faithfully multiply whatever we place in it. What I know is that the creative process uses love, and it is the most powerful energy we can engage. And so as you are looking to what it is you want to create in the world, what it is you want to experience in the world, I invite you to engage love. Because as Holmes so famously wrote in the Science of Mind textbook, love points the way, and the law makes the way possible. Thank you very much. Let's pray. Let's do that thing, that beautiful spiritual technology and neuro pathway regeneration. And so I know for each one that our minds are opened, our hearts are open. We allow ourselves to be completely present in this now moment with this now breath. For that is all we have right now. And I know the pure potentiality of spirit that is looking to express itself in whatever way we engage it, is expressing itself in powerful and loving ways through this beautiful spiritual philosophy that reminds us that every thought is a prayer, that every belief or idea is an opportunity to raise consciousness, to engage spirit in this thing we call human life. And so I know for each one as you walk out this week that there is a willingness to raise that vibration, to tend that garden, to care for it, and to allow the guidance of love to point the way for whatever action, reaction, response, anything that needs to have happen by means of our beautiful bodies, our marvelous minds, and our open hearts. I trust that it happens with grace, with power, with potential, and most importantly, with love. And so I simply anchor this prayer this highest knowing in deep gratitude and blessing for this opportunity that we have to decide what it is we want to experience, to lean in the direction of love, to lean into the direction of compassion, and to have the experience that we want to see out in the world, right within ourselves. And for this, I am so grateful. And together we say, and so it is.